Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're going to be talking about Barry Season 3, Episode number 2. If you've not hit that sub button, please do so. Leave a like, leave a comment. We're going to be talking about Barry every single week. Full spoilers. I'm going to say, huge fan of the show, watched, both seasons, loved them. Been enjoying this season, but for the first time, I think in the entirety of the show, I'm not on Barry's side. And what I mean, he's done horrible things in the past. Like there are episodes where he's done things where you're like, oh man, that's messed up. Like when he killed his friend. Stuff like that was messed up. But you sort of understood it to a degree, and usually you're always sort of rooting for Barry. Even the end of season 1, as horrible as that was, a little piece of me was like, I want Barry to get away. Um, I didn't feel that way this time. This was the first true time where at the end of the episode, I'm like, Barry's a problem. And for many people, and and you're not really rooting for him. Now, I want to say, according to IMDb, I see a 4th season on there, so I don't know if they've greenlit a 4th season.
They already did.
Okay.
They greenlit before the 3rd one came out.
So Barry's going to keep going for a while now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this season plays out and where Barry ends up at the end of it. But I just wanted to get that out there that this was a weird experience for me because I'm sitting there looking at the character and thinking, man, I'm not on your side this time. So just that was my initial thoughts of the episode. Any initial thoughts?
But I love the show. I just love that. I can't remember Alex's last name. It's like Alec something, and Bill Hader are the ones who run the show, write all the episodes and everything. And they both kind of go back and forth directing a little bit. And I don't know who directed this episode, but it was funny that it was like everybody reverted back to what they were, to how they were before we knew them. And that's how I felt this episode was kind of showing us all the characters before we met them. Because Sally, when she was, abused and everything, she kept going through her head that that's not how it really happened. But her friend was like, nah, that's not what happened. And kept trying to correct her monologue, basically trying to correct what really happened. But you never really saw Sally, with the exception of the one episode where Sam shows up, and you only kind of got a glimpse into it. But when Barry lost his shit on her, she immediately made him a sandwich, and she did all these things because she reverted back to how she was with Sam, which made me pissed at Barry. And I'd never been pissed at Barry. I've been like, oh shit, that's kind of messed up, but I've never been mad. That part, and he's a character. I still love the show, and I love that they're exploring different avenues, but that's the first time I've ever been mad at Barry. But then you see Barry struggling with approval. So, that goes way before he ever joined the military or anything like that. So I'm curious if this season it's going to explore what made Barry become Barry, because he was almost childlike when he didn't have a direction or anything. It's like he reverted to a childhood state. So I'm curious if we're going to get some backstory of Barry to kind of, fill out this character. Because I think that that's what they're doing, is kind of setting up a couple backstory episodes.
I think we're on the same page on that. I wonder if we go back as far as, like you're saying, or I think insinuating, even his childhood, because it seems like we have to go that far back. Because we have this whole episode where the major problem, the through line, is that Barry doesn't see how wrong the shit he's doing is, or doesn't seem to be able to perceive what other people's, reaction or the emotional impact of what he's doing is, because the way he yells at Sally and her reaction to it, and the way she's responding, he's not hearing it, or the change or anything, or he doesn't really seem to have comprehended what he did, or at least the weight of what he did when he showed up to her work and yelled at her like that. He doesn't seem to understand that what he did to his acting coach would freak him out, and he's never going to get that relationship back, especially not like this. So I imagine as far as backstory, we do have to go way back. And as far as the fourth season of Barry, this is escalating so much that my question is how do you fix any of these relationships, or is the show a very different show in a season four, much like like Dexter was in its final season?
Yeah, I mean, that final shot, like you guys were saying, the stuff with Sally, you're just like, man, I was really angry at him. But then, they're playing for laughs, the whole him and Mr. Kusno, and the dog scene. I laughed. I thought that was funny. You're playing all this stuff, but then you get to that final shot, or even making him eat the sandwich in the car in the trunk. Like they were playing a lot of ha ha ha. It's dark comedy, but it's sort of funny. But you get to that final shot, and Barry's sitting there, and he looks over, and he, in a very calm way, basically says, "I'll kill your family." Calmly says it if you don't play along. And just like, whoa, like it's just such a dark scene. And then finally to say, tell me you love me, just sort of this need for that. And you're just like, holy shit. Like that was the moment I'm sitting there like, Barry is insane. Like he's lost it on a level that he hasn't in the past. And the line of dialogue when he's going after Sally is, I have to do this to live. He said, I have to do this to live. He's screaming it out. So we basically seen Barry snap. And like you said, Larry, or Spencer, how crazy it was that when he calls her later, he's not even thinking about what he did. Like it is not even a thought in his mind on
Right.
what he did to her. Like he's truly, lost it as a character. And it's going to be interesting to see how both of those relationships go.
And it's funny you mentioned that line, I have to do this to live. I mean, that makes me think that we do need those flashbacks, because maybe these seasons, that the past seasons that we've seen of Barry, it's the only time where he's actually had a chance to feel human and loved in his entire life. Maybe he's never had that. Maybe he's always been experienced a traumatic life in the way we see him when he gets out of the military and everything. That is his normal, just that the chaos that he's always experiencing. And it seems like he's trying to reclaim it in the worst way possible.
We have a new character who I don't believe I got her name, but basically the actress that's in Sally's show. And we have a couple scenes with her. We saw her last week, and we see her a couple times this week. She was there when the Barry freak out happened, and she's legitimately concerned. And she approaches some people behind the scenes and is like, "Hey, did y'all see what happened?" And they basically are like, "Look, we don't want to get involved. We like our jobs. It is what it is. Move on." And so I have a feeling that character, I don't know exactly where they're going to go with her, but clearly she's going to play a role this season. Maybe she'll befriend Sally. Maybe um, she'll try and help her get out of this relationship. I don't know. But any thoughts on that character, or where you think that could be going?
My big question mark is how they're going to push it forward. I think that unintentionally Barry brought more attention to himself. Whether anything comes from his reaction and what happened to Sally or not, I think that now there's going to be a light on Barry that he probably not only doesn't want but didn't realize was going to be there. He's with Kusino, he basically has been saying, "Hey, this is Barry this whole time," and I am curious to see if it ends up, I don't know, bringing way too much of what Barry actually is to light. And Barry's not going to enjoy that because he's been kind of hiding in the shadows for a long time. And him going to the dark web, which was in one of the, the first episode where he's looking on basically the Hitman Craigslist, which was funny as shit. But he's putting himself in a situation where he's going to get caught, or at least put in a situation where something's going to happen that puts everything in jeopardy. And I am curious. I think that it's probably going to be this girl or this actor.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You know, it may converge with like them investigating fugues and everything, and thinking that they've got their guy and that they've cleared Barry, and maybe even one detective just kind of overhearing from her how unhinged Barry seems and syncing up with what Kusino has to say and how afraid he seems to be once they approach him and say, "Hey, we got the guy who killed your wife," and yet he still seems very afraid and doesn't mention Barry. You know, like a decent detective would pick up that things just seem off with him as well and start doing some investigating. So, you know, that may be the significance of the character, or, you know, it's a show that throws you sometimes. She may have other connections, but you know,
Yeah, we don't know a lot of famous kids. Even they're not just famous kid actors; they're famous because of who their parents are. So I
Mhm.
am, like you just said, that I am curious if the kid actor has more connections than we're aware of currently.
Right, yeah, yeah, but we'd have to have a few more episodes before we can really piece anything together. It could be because we don't know much about her yet.
My favorite character, Hank. Man, did this get complicated, and in such a good way. By the end, I'm going to recap what happened and then go into what I think is the setup. And I'm so excited because it's so complicated. It's so many. It's one of those things where I didn't see this coming, and I'm so excited. So basically, Hank and Cristobal are a couple. Well, we turns out Cristobal is married, has kids, and is sort of
That is
second
so good.
tier in some big criminal organization. We knew he was involved in crime, but Bolivian, this Bolivian organization. Well, we turns out his father-in-law, a guy named Fernando, shows up, is like, "Yo, the Hank and his crew, we got to take those guys out. They're the ones screwing you over." Of course, Cristobal has to keep all the secrets, the fact that him and Hank are a couple. In the end, he's able to save Hank and his crew, letting them know what's going on. I love the fact that they're going on that tour, Hollywood tour, which is fun. Leads to the
Dude, that
scene
was
at the end in which Cristobal breaks up with Hank and basically is like, "Look, get out of town." Tells him that Fernando's the reason this is all taking place. Hank is sitting there heartbroken. This is where I think it's going. In order to get back with Cristobal, Hank has to take Fernando out and his crew. He only knows one guy who is a true killing machine. So my thoughts are, in order to get back with Cristobal, he's going to hire or pull in Barry to try and take out Fernando. That's where I think it's going. So this whole, I mean, absolutely loving this storyline. Curious to see where it goes. Thoughts, theories.
I didn't have that thought, but now that you say it, it makes complete sense. So yeah, I agree 100% because it's when you there's no other reason at this point for them to be aligned or even friends because unintentionally, because Barry, as much as Barry's fucking crazy, he liked Hank. Like he was never trying to fuck Hank over, but he ended up messing him over real bad. And for him to be trying to get back within his good graces and find a purpose, this is going to be his next purpose. And I think that it will benefit Hank greatly and the story because I think that Barry himself is this pathway. I think is just going to give us more of a history, and I hope that this isn't the direction they take the character. Uh, I mean, I think they could still probably make it work, and it would still be great. But it's kind of hard to root for somebody who does all that kind of shit, and not in a funny haha way at this point. It's like a sad, mean way.
Yeah, and maybe that's how we get back to the comedy is Barry realizing that his only real friend in relationship is NoHo Hank, his one true friend. You know, knows who he is completely, respects it, and loves it. Like, but But yeah,
But there's
absolutely.
Hank.
That's true. He's the only person that truly is like, you're a great psychopathic murderer, and I love that. Like that's what he loves about it.
Yeah, he loves who Barry is. He doesn't love the fact that, what Barry can do for him or anything. Like, he legit loves him because he's fucking crazy and he's good at what he does.
Yeah, so maybe Barry will realize that by the end of the season. But yeah, I think your theory's right, Brian. Because the only way to solve Hank's problem is to is to kill Cristobal's father-in-law, making Cristobal head of the family, and giving him an excuse to stay in LA because because he's in charge. He's like, well, I'm here because this is where I want to be. I'm in charge of the family. But that was a surprising and messed up revelation too. That Cristobal has this whole family and he has kids and everything, and he's ignoring all this, just to mess around with Hank.
He's ducking everything for love.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why I say this whole subplot. I was like, holy shit! Like I didn't see any of this coming. Like who would have thought last season that Cristobal would be like a major player still in this season?
Not me. Shit.
I didn't see it coming, but I'm glad he's there. He was hilarious last season that to the point where I actually bought the Four Agreements because he kept quoting it so much. I was like, let me pick up this damn book and see what's in it.
Yeah. Um, so Barry has he has a job now. He got an acting part, and supposedly what Sally said is a legit like major production, big show. Um, he got Mr. Kusno a bit role in that, so that's interesting because that's going to put Barry on television. That's going to put Barry more in the spotlight. That could lead to other jobs. So now we have Sally off doing her Hollywood thing. Barry's obviously my assumption is that he'll be killing again with Hank, but he's also going to be an actor. He's actually it's happening. He's going to be a guy on television, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays going forward in the series. Any thoughts on that?
I'm extremely curious as to how they're going to do it because this is the path he wanted to take to basically get out. Like, he's been trying to do this so that he doesn't have to kill people anymore. Like, his whole mission was to become an actor. That's what he wanted to be. That's what he wanted to do. So I am curious as to how they are going to transition that from where he is now to being, a member of the Hollywood elite, because this show, they basically had him read for a reoccurring role, and now he's going to be on this show. So for him to go from what he's doing to basically becoming a semi lead, it's going to get his name out there. And if him and Sally stay together even after this, uh, it, that may be what they do with his role too. Is that all right? Now he's getting famous, he's getting big, and then this girl is just like, nah, he can't be big. He's an asshole. And then basically reveals who he is and kind of, a couple of years ago, that happened a lot in Hollywood and it brought a lot of big people down. And that may be the path that they're trying to take with this, is that he ends up, people try to take him down because of who he really is, which is the asshole, not the killer part.
Yeah, I just love that part of the show is that he accidentally lands these roles so easy, in particular when he's not even trying to. And these are things that all the other characters fight for.
Based strictly on size.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Doesn't give a shit, and the fact that he's, 6'1", and they're like, "How tall are you?" He's like, "Yeah, 6'1". They're like, "Ooh, okay. We need somebody tall." He's like, "What? That's it?"
I also loved this episode also had a few little inside jokes, Hollywood stuff with when I saw that with Josh Gad poster and of the film he wasn't in. That was funny. The whole idea of they start everyone he went to about Mr. Kusno, they all had a shitty story about him, and some of them were pretty funny. But sort of this idea of this gossip in Hollywood of that guy's a shithead, fuck him. And then finally, the opening right before Barry comes into Sally, the whole writing scene. They're writing and just the back and forth of, and then the girl's just like, "Oh, how do you guys come up with it?" And they're giving her some bullshit answer. I liked all that stuff as well.
I thought it was cool too because Brian and I have tried our hand at writing, and I've tried to write radio dramas and stuff. It's hard, but to me it's enjoyable. Like it's doing that kind of stuff.
Wrote your
But
Pickle
to
D.
me the bit,
Sanderson, man. You wrote you
dude,
wrote
I
most
love
of
Pickle
that.
D. Yeah, you just said, "Hey, act like this," and I was like, "All right."
The only person Larry's lines were pretty much written, but
Yeah.
a lot of your shit was not.
The Pickle D was completely ad libbed.
Most of
Pretty
Pickle
much
D's line, the scenarios were pretty
set in stone. But
outlined, yeah, but the dialogue, no, that was Spencer.
that kind of stuff, I greatly enjoy. So watching her go through the process in such a bullshit kind of way, to me, was even funnier because I'm just like, that's bullshit. And the entirety of the nobody would say that. We need to add some likes and that had me rolling because
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
dude,
that was one of the reasons I brought up that whole scene.
I do love that because as they were explaining it, they were doing it, and they were actually doing that in the scene. It's like, yeah, no one actually talks like that. No one gives exposition like this, as she's, doing an exposition and just monologuing. It was pretty funny. That and like you mentioned previously, another one of the funniest scenes, like you mentioned, was the dog scene where there's the breakup as Mr. Kusano's trying to run away. She's like, "You're breaking up with me after 5 years." Like, you have too many
You got
dogs.
so many dogs, and and the amount. I mean,
oh
it turned
god,
into a like an over the top, like Three Stooges bit. Like, you know what I mean? Like there were so
there
many
were
dogs.
so many dogs.
Like it just kept going and going and going, and he couldn't get over that fence. And I was like,
He pulls that off, and Henry Winkler and the character he's doing so well. Like, I'd like to see him do a similar thing on something like Only Murders in the Building.
oh, he'd be perfect for that show. Absolutely.
Oh, I think Martin and Short would feed off each other greatly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let me see here. That's about it. I had a thought on where a season 4 could go. I'll throw that out there really quick and see what you guys think. Like, can you imagine a scenario where everyone discovers, yes, Barry is this monster. He's done these horrible things. He's a killer, professional assassin. He's also a famous actor. Um, Instead of busting him, though, the police need him for a mission. So they're like, stay an actor. That's your cover. But we need you to do these things for us. And that's what the show becomes.
I wouldn't be surprised though, just because the FBI looking into it and they're not making a whole lot of headway with getting NoHo Hank, and they know that there's a lot of organized crime going on, but they haven't really been able to break into it at all. So that would actually make a lot of sense for that to be the path that they take.
It's like a season of 24, basically.
Or it could be that. It could be that, but they still don't know that Barry did it. Like, Barry still seems completely in the clear. And like you said, the FBI is now involved. He's like, but they've seen him in proximity of Hank and stuff. And they, of course, have files on them and know his past and his training and everything. And they're like, "You're close to NoHo Hank, and like,
They're like,
at least in the civilian, we need you to be
we
our
need
guy."
you to get the Raven.
He
Go
ends
in
up
there.
being like a confidential informant.
Yeah, exactly. Be an informant. Get us the Raven.
Yeah, there was no Fuchs this week. So
That's true. I was expecting Fuchs.
I am curious as to how they're going to bring him back into the fold because clearly he's in hiding, but Now with Cristobal and everything else going on, I am curious as to how they're going to bring that forward. If he's going to end up being found, or if he's going to decide to try and come back. Like, I don't know how they're going to progress that story, but I am very, very interested in it.
Well, that could fit into the scenario we were talking about for season 4. If the way they try to get around it partially is if Hank feeds Cristobal the story about the Raven, and he feeds it to, his father-in-law's crew, and now they're searching specifically for the Raven and not Hank's crew.
Yeah.
And Barry takes them out, and now Fuchs is even more infamous.
They're like, who killed everyone? He's like, the Raven.
It's like, it was the Raven.
Barry just keeps doing all this dirty work and gets zero credit. Not that he's looking for credit, because he hasn't been, but
imagine
Fuchs
gets locked up in prison, and they're like, he's the most dangerous assassin that's ever lived. They have him in like high security. He's at a federal institute.
Which in the end would work out for Fuchs, because he's got an ego, so
that's true.
He would want that kind of respect. And I get the feeling that Barry's girlfriend is also going to have suspicions about him, and this whole Raven angle, may make their relationship normal again, after he gets some therapy and stops yelling at her, if they're going to continue with this relationship in the show.
Well, it's funny because like I haven't been a fan of this episode. It was brilliant the way that they made you sympathize with Barry, but at the same time look at her like she's the one that needs to be sympathized with, because she's the one being treated like shit. So it
did a good job of reminding you of her trauma and and how that's affected her, and then like you said, her reverting back. It did a phenomenal job of that.
Absolutely, because it made you feel a lot of sympathy for a character that you don't often feel a lot of sympathy for, because she's typically shown just being very callous and not actually even paying attention to what anyone else is saying. But the fact they opened up these traumas,
it's such a dark and depressing scene when she's getting his food ready and everything. But then they throw in the little comedy line where it's like you got a Bluetooth connect the controller. She's like, how the fuck do you do that? Like, I was like, oh man.
God. It's like, but I think she's gonna wind up suspicious of Barry to some extent, because given that this whole incident happened, she has to look at the idea of like, do I really know this man? Because it's the first time Barry's ever done anything like that. I mean, hell, it's the first time he's really expressed much of an opinion since they've been dating.
Yeah, like it was always showing him like in his head doing that stuff, but he never really outwardly acted like that towards her at all.
Like previously he's passively gone along with, whatever's being said.
Yeah, this was, I mean, the way he freaked out here was something, I don't think she's seen, definitely not directed at her. But he snapped. I mean, but episode number 2. Hell, I mean, shit, man, these have only been 2 episodes. Look how good it's been. Like, it's like, man, this season's on fire. I'm very excited for the rest. Anything else?
Nah.
No, other than I'm curious how we get a season 4 out of this.
Yeah.
It seems like things could easily wrap up this season.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I just noticed the IMDb had a 4th season on there, and I was like, oh shit, they must have already greenlit it. But yeah, we appreciate everyone listening. Check out all the content on the channel. Big Sky coming back. Yeah. Flight Attendant. It'll happen sometime. It'll probably be the first like 5 episodes. I'll get to them. HBO, quit shotgunning episodes, please. Please, just give me one. I just need one a week. Just give me one episode. That's why we don't review Netflix. But yeah, check out the stuff on the channel. Barry reviews every single week. Appreciate everybody listening, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay woke.